Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Will My PPP Loan Be Forgiven? It's a seminar of one in a series, and um, thanks for attending. Hope you're doing well. It's a it's a very important topic to you guys. We have a nice turnout today, so I'm so happy that you turned out to be with us. My name is Brian Schill, and I'm the Executive Director for the Peters Chamber, and facilitating with me is Kelly Keene, our Operations Coordinator. So lucky to have her with us today. Just a little bit about the Chamber. We're a 501c6 membership-based nonprofit. We receive no government funding. Our funding primarily is composed of each member's annual investment, so thank you very much, and our events and sponsorships. So our mission is to provide connections, opportunities, partnerships, and resources to grow our businesses and our communities. And quite simply, we promote, we advocate, we connect, and we educate. So in addition to Peters, we also cover the South Hills and Northern Washington County. And we're lucky enough today to have with us Glenn Main. He is the managing partner at the Main Group. He's a former CPA, longtime chamber member. He lives right here in McMurray. He has a daughter on board with us this morning. His family owns multiple businesses, and he's a consultant to business owners all over the U.S. So what I wanted to do first thing this morning is sort of set the stage for you, if you will. So one of our members recommended that Glenn should talk about the PPP. And originally, I was sort of thinking that, you know what, this ship has sailed. Maybe we should try something else. You know, all the loans have been somewhat processed, and the monies are drying up. But on the next day, I received an email from one of our members regarding PPP forgiveness. I'm just going to give him a shout out because he's on board, Mike Kita from Zoop. Thank you. But what that email did for me is it made me realize basically the ship has just launched from the port. Some of the passengers embarked. Those were the ones fortunate enough to receive the PPP loans, and the rest were left on the dock. So there's much more to this story with PPP. So I turned to our noted national expert, Glenn Main, and voila, here we are today with Will My PPP Loan Be Forgiven, Part 1. So Glenn will address some of the basic numbers to refresh you, but more so today we want to equip you with a more diverse background on the program, make you aware of some of the potential pitfalls and how you can protect yourself from some of the possible ramifications of those pitfalls. Our goals today are to increase awareness, to talk about some emerging issues. We'll have some Q&A, and then we'll finish up with where you can go for further assistance. So Glenn will provide us with some thought-provoking messages this morning for the next 25 minutes or so, and then we'll fill the remainder of the time with some Q&A. A little bit of Zoom 101. Everybody is muted at this point. Please remain muted so we can eliminate all the background noise. This is being recorded, so it will be available afterwards. If you have a question, you can use the chat feature to ask your question, and it's located at the bottom of your screen. So with all that said, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Glenn Main. Glenn?
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Even though the camera's not working?
Gotcha.
Right? Okay. So let me jump right in here and talk about PPP for a little bit. I thought it would be the most productive to do this in plain English. I know that everybody can read, so it's not a function of not knowing what the language says if that's what you want to do. That's all over the place. What I hear business owners struggling with when I talk to them all over the country is, okay, I get the idea, but tell me what it means. I don't understand what it means. And then we usually have a conversation about what it really means to me. And every business owner is different, right? So the questions that somebody who owns a restaurant has is going to be very different than somebody who owns a hardware store or a hair salon or a service company. So that's part of the difficulty here. But so we're gonna really talk about what it means. The other challenge in this thing, if you haven't noticed already, and I'm sure you've been keeping up with it, if you've already applied for your loan and you have your loan or you're in that process, is the rules, quote unquote, keep changing. Steve McCarron, who's one of our top community bankers in the area, and I have probably talked at least once or twice every day. And it's just unbelievable to me how fast this changes. It's like every day it's different. I probably spend 2 hours a day talking to wonky people like tax attorneys and CPAs all over the country, as well as business owners, and they're struggling, right? So don't feel like you don't know exactly what the rules are, because nobody does. And if you get the feeling that they're making it up as they go, that would be accurate, I think. So here's what I think business owners want out of PPP. They don't want a loan, even a 1% loan, that's payable in 2 years. That's not why anybody got a PPP loan. If you wanted a loan, there's something called an EIDL program. That's the loan. The PPP program is something brand new, never happened before, kind of like coronavirus never happened before this way. So what business owners are telling me, and we're business owners, so I think this myself, is they really want the forgiveness. It's not the loan part that's all that attractive. It's how do I get forgiven for the loan? That's called a grant, not a loan. Okay? So why didn't the government do that? Why didn't they just send you a grant check? Well, they want you to do something for 8 weeks, right? So we're going to talk about that in a second. The other thing that I think is unsaid, and we're going to talk about this because it's very important and it's reared its ugly head in the last 2 weeks, especially 10 days anyway, is business owners don't want to be put in jeopardy or risk, additional risk right now because they got the loan. And they really don't have time for the hassle, right? Every business owner I've talked to is up to their eyeballs in just taking care of their employees, of the business, all that kind of stuff. All right. So it's like, I can't deal with a bunch of gobbledygook and hassle. But you know what? You get all the government you pay for. So you're going to have some of that. Our goal is to cut through that for you and help you have a clarity about what's going on. Okay, fair enough? All right, so I think I said this, but I'm assuming everybody has either gotten their loan, funding, had approval, is waiting on the loan, has the money in the bank, something like that. That's where you are in the process. So we're not going to talk about the application process. I think the window is still open technically on round 2. I have a lot of thoughts, as I did since March 27, 5 weeks ago, that feels like 5 years ago, about what's going to happen. I think this is going to be renewed. I think it's going to last a long, long time. But for now, we're where we are. So let's talk about forgiveness for a second, okay? It seems so simple, right? What it says, what the law says, the 880-page CARE Act says, is you first get a loan. The loan is calculated on payroll. So you take your average payroll cost over a period of time, For most people, that was last year, 2019. Okay? You average it out. It's payroll, paychecks to employees, including yourself in some situations. And that's another confusion as we went through this. And a couple of other things: health insurance that you pay for your employees, and retirement plan benefits that you pay for your employees, and some other very miscellaneous things in there. But those are the three big ones. Okay? All those items together, divide that by 12. Multiply that number times 2.5. So let's think about this just a second, because this is important when we talk about forgiveness. 2.5. If I multiply my average month times 2.5, most of you are pretty quick with math. How many weeks is that? I think it's 10 weeks, correct? So 4 weeks times 2.5 gets 10. If there's a math major out there and I make a mistake, just throw it in a chat, okay? So you've got 10 weeks worth of payroll to work with, okay? That's the loan. So that's tucked away. We've got the money. Let's talk about forgiveness, because that's really what we're after. That's the pie in the sky. That's the gold at the end of the rainbow, if you will. The first thing that's like a big aha or uh-oh, or what does that mean, is the way we get the forgiveness to happen is different than the way we got the loan to happen in significant ways. Okay? It's very different. The way you calculate it, what it covers, what the ifs, ands, or buts of it. So you need to know this, at least at a basic level, because this is where it gets a little tricky. So at the simplistic level, it says, the law says that you take the money from the loan and you spend it in 8 weeks. Well, wait a minute. I got 10 weeks worth of money. I got 8 weeks to spend it. Huh. All right. So that's number one. So what the Congress was thinking, we think, is that they wanted to give us enough money to cover 2 months. Remember back at that point in time, it was like, hey, just keep your doors open. Just keep your employees in place. Don't let them run away and then have to get them all back and corral them and everything. It takes a long time. You got to, get their uniforms cleaned. You got to get them back in place. Just keep them in place. We'll give you the money. Because in what? 8 weeks, this will what? Oh, it's all over. Done. Go back to pretend it never happened. Well, I don't think anybody thinks that anymore, but that was the thinking at the time. All right. So Congress said, well, wait a minute, it's not just payroll. There's some other core expenses for most businesses, most small businesses. So they said, we'll give you a little extra. We give you 2 more weeks worth of money, and you're allowed to spend that too on rent, utilities, and interest. Now, this is important. The SBA, who was put in charge of administering this program, so the Treasury Department, at the direction of Congress, Steve Mnuchin, you've seen him on TV, used to be Goldman Sachs, smart dude. He said, I got this idea. Let's talk to Marco Rubio, Ben Cardin, those guys. We'll come up with something. And the idea was the PPP program, right? So what happens next? The SBA gets involved and they go, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa. We want to interpret the law for you. And the way they do that is something called guidance. Steve's explained this part to me. Guidance is normally done before the loans are offered, before the process starts, but there wasn't enough time this time. So guess when guidance is happening? Like right now. It's been evolving. There was no guidance when it started, none. I've got the, so it was 880-page act, the law. The guidance is now up to, well, as of the 3rd, Sunday, so they're working on Sunday. That's good. It was 42 questions and answers. If you want a copy, let me know. It'll put you right to sleep if you're not sleeping. Okay, so I think it may be more questions and answers. It's going to be 100 or 200 by the time we're over 300 or 400 or 500, right? I think. So this is the good stuff. And they're making up stuff, by the way, that isn't in the law. One of the things they're putting out as guidance, the SBA rules, if you will, is that 75% of the money has to be spent on payroll and only 25% can be spent on rent, utilities, interest, in addition to payroll. So there's a little gotcha, isn't it? That's not what the law says. The law says it could be theoretically 100% on rent, 100% on utilities, 50% on payroll. But SBA says, we think it should be 75% on payroll. I'm not disagreeing with the premise. I'm just saying, there's some businesses out there who are saying, oh, wait a minute. We can't spend all the money on payroll, even half the money on payroll, because our governor, don't get me started, is keeping us from even going to the office. I can't go to my office. I'm a non-essential employee, which no surprise there, but ask my family. But I'm just saying it's a problem. It's a problem. Those of you who are married got that part. Okay, so now let's talk about what I really want to talk about, which is, because I love business owners, I am afraid, I am concerned that business owners will get tripped up. That worries me. Because guess what? I live here. I like this community. I need a haircut. I need to go see Linda Sam at Atria's again and get one of those salmon salads. I need to run through the donut shop and bump into my buddy Brian Schill. I need to go to Ace and get a light bulb again, right? All the simple pleasures. And if you guys are done, what am I supposed to do? Drive to West Virginia to get my hair cut? I don't get that. So everybody is interconnected in this deal. So the first thing that can throw a ring in the deal, put a problem in here, is there's two gotchas that will reduce your forgiveness amount. So this is not as simple as just paying the money for payroll, rent, utilities, interest. There's two other hurdles that make this complicated. I created a spreadsheet. It's not official government document. It is not tax, legal, spiritual, financial advice. But if you want it, I'll get it to you through the chamber, okay? And it probably won't even hold up in court, but it'll give you something to work off of, better than the back of a napkin. And it's a simple way to sort of guesstimate what your forgiveness is going to be. I think that's critical. I mean, you're facing 8 weeks worth of decisions that's going to go like a flash, right? And then you're going to say, oh, I'm ready to get forgiveness. And if the banker or whoever it is that's going to decide if you get it or not sees stuff that doesn't make any sense, or you didn't go through the hurdles right, they're going to come back and say, oh, I'm really sorry, but you screwed up. And then you're going to be mad. Okay? So I don't want you to be mad. So the first hurdle is Did you have enough employees working, or correction, being paid? You see what I'm saying? There's no requirement that anybody is working. This is unemployment insurance through the company in reality. It's the optics of not having a Great Depression style unemployment, which we have anyway. So trap number one, if you have less than the same number of bodies, not the same people. So there's a clue for you, clue game. If you have the same number of bodies that you had before, called FTEs, full-time employees, then the formula is 100%, right? I got 10 before, I got 10 after. Oh, forgot to tell you. The measuring period for the number of employees is different. How interesting is that? So we need to understand that. And forgot to tell you, you can pick from 2 different periods, unless you're a seasonal employer, and then you get picked from 3 different periods. I mean, that's how goofy it gets really fast. But that's important because that's a lever that'll work for you or against you. So if you only have half as many people, guess what just happened to your forgiveness? Half. You can spend all the money, you get half forgiveness. You know what that's called? You screwed up, because now you have a loan. And you get to pay the loan back plus 1%. That's not what we wanted, right? So there's another one in there. If you reduce any one person's salary, including your own, that counts toward the formula by more than 25%, you get cut for that too. So those two can work in concert and really hurt you. That's not what you want. I'm not asking for hands, but I'm guessing, because I know how business owners operate. I'm one, Ben one. In times of trouble, whose pay gets cut first? That's right, yours. Because it's your business. That's why when things are good, you don't mind taking a little extra out. But in this case, it can hurt you. What do business owners also do? They start surveying the landscape and they say, you know, my brother-in-law has a business in Houston, Texas, machining business, serving the oil and gas industry. So he's got a world of hurt right now, right? His customers are in trouble. So he's got 10 employees. He said, hey, you know, there's 2 guys, I could probably do without them. Work slow anyway. I said, don't do that. Don't do that. Just pay them to stand around. Boy, that's hard, isn't it? That's a difficult thing for a business owner to do. So we devised a plan to hire substitute employees that actually could help him instead of the 2 guys that he needed to let go anyway. So there's some strategy here, but I'm trying to stay on the message of what to watch out for the moment. Okay, next thing, trap. Be very, very careful about your assumptions. I was talking to a guy yesterday, won't mention his name, and he said, that just doesn't make any sense. I said, congratulations, now you're getting this. This is the government, G-O-V, oh, right. This is the government, the United States government. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. Just understand what they're trying to do, if you can, and follow the rules. Do not assume anything. Your brother-in-law probably doesn't know what the rules are. Here's the other thing, and I'm sad to say this because I used to be one, but a lot of CPAs don't know what the rules are. A lot of bankers don't know what the rules are. That's not a slight, by the way. This thing is a mess. So a lot of people do not really know. If somebody that you rely on for advice, and you should, by the way, you should talk to your advisors about this. If they're not up to speed and they're just guessing, or they're reading a page in front of the pages that you're reading, that's not good. You need somebody that can help you that really understands this. So that's the first question to ask them. Okay, do you understand this? What is the answer? Don't estimate, don't guess. That's a problem. And I'm seeing that a lot. The rules are changing every day. So the rules that existed on April 1st, there's some irony in that, are different than the rules that existed on the 10th and the 15th and today. Well, what does that mean? Do I go by the rules in the beginning or now or whatever? That's a problem. What if I have a question and there is no rule? Lots of those. Here's a big one, and we're going to talk about this in just a minute, and then I'm going to do Q&A. Document. And I don't just mean the numbers. There's an expression that Brian Schill taught me called CYA. It's like LOL. The guys will all know that expression. The women may not. If you don't know what CYA stands for, call Brian. Okay, he'll explain it to you. It's a military term. Okay, if you're not CYA right now, you're going to have trouble, I predict. But it may not even hit you in 10 weeks. It may hit you in a year or two, when this young accounting graduate that flunked out, got a C in accounting class, who's hired by the SBA, says, I want to look at your books. I want to see how you did. This is after the fact, right? And you go, what do you mean? Well, we did a random audit and we thought that you may not have done this just right. That is not the time to figure this out. We need to figure it out now. It's not that hard, but if you don't know what the rules are, that's a problem. Okay? So that's called trouble. Another trap. I'll just wait 8 weeks and see how I did. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Thinking you can't affect the forgiveness outcome. Don't assume that. Do the projection, use the worksheet or your own or your accountant's, and just guess. Do a scenario plan. What if I did this? What if I did that? If you kind of know, then you can kind of figure it out. Another thing that's squirrely here is, what if I own an S Corp and I pay myself a payroll, but I really take most of the money out through distributions? Different. What if I'm a single member LLC? Lots of business owners are that. What do I do with that? Different answer than S Corp. What if I'm a partner in a partnership? Right? Different answer than the other two. What if I'm self-employed and filed a Schedule C? Another different answer. In fact, a lot of small businesses are Schedule Cs. They're treated differently than the other businesses. I don't seem fair, but that's what it says. Okay, a couple of concerns that you need to be aware of. This is not, I'm not trying to add to the burden, but you need to know this. I talked about it a minute ago. About a week and a half ago, it came to the attention of the president and the secretary of the Treasury that some really big businesses, I'm sure you saw it on the news, Harvard, Stanford, LA Lakers, Shake Shack, somehow, amazingly, jumped to the front of the line. They they worked with their large banks, and they magically got $10 million loans, which is the limit, because they really needed the cash. These are the same people that lecture us on social good and take care of people and loving small business. So each $10 million loan that went out the door, I think, represented 100 small businesses that didn't get anything and are still waiting. That makes me sick. And it didn't go over well with President Trump and Secretary Mnuchin. So they said, no problem, we'll issue an edict. And they called him up and they said, we noticed this little line in the PPP loan application, and it says that you say to the federal government under penalty of 30 years in jail and $1 million fine, and they probably said that about 5 times, that you needed the cash. This was necessary to keep your business going. And they said, yeah, but our lawyer accountant said, no problem. You all encouraged us to take the money. And they said, we think it might be a better idea to just give the money back. And amazingly, they had a change of heart. They all gave the money back. Here's the problem. They didn't really just restrict it to those guys. It applies to you too. That scared the bejeebies out of accountants and attorneys and bankers who said, what does that mean? What does it mean that it's necessary for you to have the money? Does that mean you have to be on the doorsteps of the courthouse filing Chapter 11? Does that mean you have to have no cash? Does that mean if you have any cash, you can't take it? What does that mean? Okay? CYA, CYA, CYA. You better build a file and say what you were thinking and why you thought it was necessary. Okay? Very, very, very important to document that. You don't want trouble out of this. I don't think you should give the money back necessarily. I think you just need to say, this is what my rationale was. Okay? I've been saying for a while, not that I have any great vision, it's just kind of easy in a way, that the forgiveness part is going to be a lot harder and require a lot more documentation and paperwork than the getting the loan part. I mean, to me, that's obvious. But I've had a lot of business owners and a lot of CPAs and a lot of attorneys and a lot of advisors say, don't worry about it. Well, I worry about it because I think you're setting yourself up if you don't anticipate a lot harder process, okay? And we don't know what the rules are. There's been no guidance, no rules issued, okay? The other thing that's concerning is embedded into the act and all federal deals right now is something called a whistleblower act. In other words, just be careful. If somebody in your business, like a disgruntled employee, decides they want to call 1-800-TURN-YOU-IN, have you noticed what's on the Pennsylvania website, by the way? There's a rat out list. If you're unhappy with your neighbor, turn them in. That's the same deal with the PPP program, the EIDL program, and everything else. If you think your boss didn't do it right, or you're mad, call 1-800. Oh, to make it better, they get 25% of the recovery. Don't you love that? Okay. The IRS got in on the deal last week too, on my birthday, May 1st, and said, we're going to change the rule on the way this is taxed. That was not good. Okay, so what to do next? And then we'll do Q&A. CYA, 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 do scenario planning using the worksheet. If you have any questions or doubt, this is not something to do by yourself, right? Don't try this at home. Get somebody to help you. Talk to your accountant, talk to your lawyer, talk to Brian, talk to Kelly, talk to somebody to get help. It's not something to try by yourself. At least have somebody look it over. That kind of helps your intent. And I would say, tell other business owners about what we're doing, because the more we talked about this, the more we decided we should do something every week, because this is a fast moving train. And what you think is true today, I almost guarantee you will be true, not be true next week, and it'll be different the next week and the next week. And our goal is to drag you safely through the process and arrive at the home base in 8 weeks, safe and sound, and get your loan forgiven. That's what our goal is. Okay, enough of that. I'm done.
Well, thanks, Glenn. I really appreciate your insight. Well, I find it very necessary to check out a couple of the comments and questions here. Let's do that. And first of all, the reason you can't see Tanya Cheney's hands is, okay, there. Oh, maybe, okay. To say, because I thought there was handcuffs on there.
Yeah.
She just had the state police pull up in front of her office and warn her that if she reopens early, the PPP loan will not be forgiven.
Are you serious?
And she added, when you start talking about the 25% and the retaliation, the 800 number, and she said that's why the state police came to her office. So someone ratted her out. So there, that's pretty interesting. So
Are you absolutely serious? You're not making this up?
Yep. So
Oh
she's
my gosh.
interesting. So yeah, that was
That's scary.
that is. So one of the questions here is if you could discuss the period calculations and also the seasonal time periods.
Okay.
This is from Peg at H&R Block. So
I can't. Most people would go to sleep. I'm not unable to, but I think I would rather say that we'll get you the SBA guidance on that, the document, and if you want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk to you. I think that's a very narrow question. It's an excellent question. I'm not dismissing the question. That probably only applies to a very small percentage of the people on the call, and I'd rather just handle it offline if that's okay.
That's perfect. Thanks, Peg. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Steve McCarron asks, employer's expense for life insurance, is it a qualified PPP expense?
Leave it up to Steve. So I don't think that there's anything that specifically includes life insurance. It specifically includes health insurance. I don't believe it includes life insurance. There's one exception that one of my wonky tax attorney guys from Clearwater, Florida brought up. If you're using life insurance as part of a retirement plan, we do that for some of our clients. It's a very sophisticated approach, because when we think of retirement plans, we normally think of what? 401ks, IRAs, profit sharing plans. But you can use life insurance as a retirement plan device. There's probably some support for doing that. But I think we can talk about it later, Steve, if you like. But I think if you're talking about a group life insurance policy, that sort of thing that most businesses carry on their employees, I don't actually think that's included. I think it's intended to be health insurance, UPMC kind of a deal, Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? That's what it's intended to be.
Okay. How about if money is left over at the end of 8 weeks, what do you do with it?
Oh, that's a great question. Brian said he'd be happy to throw a party. So what happens is the money that's left over that you didn't spend on those eligible things, right, is now a loan. It's not the worst thing in the world. I told everybody in the loan phase, go ahead and just get it, because, you can send a check back to the government. That's what Harvard did, right? No harm, no foul. I think that's the right thing to do. What you don't want is you don't want the loan left over and no money left over. So one of our strong recommendations that I've made over and over and over and over and over, and there's some disagreement out there, and I just don't understand it, is that when you get the check, or when you know the check is coming from PNC or Steve's bank or whatever bank that you're dealing with, open a dedicated account. Open a PPP account because it's part of CYA. It keeps it clean. It's kind of like when you're helping your kids or your grandkids or yourself do Easter egg coloring, you don't put all the dye in the same water. You keep the green separate than the blue, separate than the red. If you put the dyes together, you can't separate the dyes back out easily. And that's effectively what they're asking you to do. They're saying separate this out for purposes of PPP and demonstrate to us, document for us that you spend it on only those things. So if you threw the money in the big bucket of cash that you pay all the bills for in the business, how are you going to separate it out? And remember that IRS announcement I just talked to you about? That's another reason to separate it out. Because the loan proceeds, if you get a $100,000 loan and you get forgiveness, it's tax-free money. Some people are surprised at that because normally a business loan that's forgiven is taxable income. This is not. It's tax-free. It's in the act. Everybody thought until a few days ago, May 1st, my birthday, May 1st, did I mention May 1st, my birthday? Missed your card, Brian. That the expenses, ordinary necessary business expenses that you paid for, even with the money, would be deductible. IRS didn't like that. So they said non-deductible. Oh, great. My bookkeeper's going to love it. My accountant's going to love it. So this thing has legs at least through next year's tax season. Got it? So separate the money. Keep it in a separate account. Pay these expenses through that account or reimburse your general account where you pay your payroll or whatever with that money. Keep the money separate. Okay?
Okay. Next on the list. Year-end bonuses were part of the total payroll expense. Is it permitted to bonus early?
Excellent question. That's the strategy question, right? We talked about that before. There's nothing in the rules that say no. There's nothing in the rules that say yes. I think you should, we talked about this, with the gentleman, business owner in the community yesterday. I said, is there anything wrong if you have choice A or B, both within the rules, and B is better than A for your business? Are you allowed to pick B? He said, heck yeah. I said, pick B. What if C is better for your business, but it's outside the known rules? You pick B. See what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with organizing this to get forgiveness. Just don't pick C. Okay?
Okay, here's a question we've seen before and when we have chatted. What constitutes a full-time employee? What's that calculation?
Boy, is that a great question, because that's one of those levers that can come back and hit you in the face. Remember we talked about that? I know this is going to shock you, given our conversation. There is no definition. They haven't given us a definition for forgiveness purposes. We do have a definition for loan acquisition purposes. It's question, I believe, number 36, if I remember. Yeah, it's 36. So it's in those SBA guidance documents that we can get to you. We can guess. I think that's the best you can do right now. I think there'll be guidance about it, but we don't really know what it is. That's not a great answer, but that's the best answer we have.
Okay.
Excellent question.
How about rent expense is included, can it be prepaid for the year?
Wow. ABC. ABC. I
ABC.
think I think you can justify probably some additional rent if you can justify some additional rent. If you tried to pay a year's rent in a month, you might have some splaining to do, as my mom used to say. You got some splaining to do. That fair?
Okay. Please clarify the other payroll costs included in the 75%, for example, local and state tax.
Right. So the main one is the payroll itself, checks to employees, including yourself, right? Including your net profit as a Schedule C, which is a squirrely one. That's the main one. The second one, what's not included, which is interesting, is payroll cost. So if you're a business and you pay payroll, you have to match their Social Security, Medicaid payment, right? That's not included. That's on you. So if you have $1 million payroll, I mean, I have a client that's $2.1 million PPP loan. He has to foot the bill for the match out of his own money, even though the PPP is allowed to pay everything else. So that's interesting. But health insurance cost, a group plan, that's included. And retirement plan cost, and we sort of touched on that a little bit. There's some variation in there, I believe. There's this one item for state and local costs that you pay on payroll. Of all of the loans we participated in, helped people with, I didn't see one penny in that column. I'm not sure I even know what that is. I think some states, like I'm guessing California, New York, who tax everything, probably have taxes on taxes that would qualify. I don't honestly know what that is. But at work, if this helps you at all, what was used for the loan side to qualify is also the same. It mirrors for the forgiveness side. So that calculation is the same.
Okay. Let's see. I think we got time for one more question here. Can you pay equipment leases with the 25%? Do the invoices need to be dated after April 9th, or can they be invoices dated earlier?
Well, that's a great question too. Senator Rubio anticipated that question, and his buddies. What they said, which I think is fair, is rent, which includes equipment leases, right? That's rent. That's a form of rent. But any lease, any rental agreement has to have been in place already by, I'll check this, but I believe it's February 15th. So you can't just hurry up and say, oh, shoot, I'm running close on this calculation. I think I'll just go rent a new gold truck, Brian, and I'll put that in there. Everybody knows Brian's truck, right? It's a standout in the township. You can't do that, but otherwise you can.
Okay, let's see what we got for time. Let's see.
We did pretty good on time.
Yeah, we did pretty good. Let's see here. Let's do one more. If employees are receiving unemployment, are they, the business, liable to repay any of that?
Boy, that's actually an interesting question. Up until, I think Steve sent me this, up until last, I lose track of time, Monday maybe, Friday, Monday, there was a big question about people that had gone on unemployment, because you guys probably know this, right? Unemployment is so generous right now that a lot of employees are making more on unemployment than they are working for you. And that's a problem because you're saying, wait a minute, I want to hire you back. I want to give you my PPP salary. And they go, poo, poo, poo. I'm staying on unemployment, right? What's up with that? Or they say, I'm scared to death. I'm not coming back over there. Or Governor Wolf won't let me come back over there. Okay. And it's not my fault that you got to spend the PPP money. So this guidance, and Steve can help me if you want to, says if you offer them their job back, kind of like we would do for regular unemployment, and they say no, they can say no, I'm too scared, but they lose their unemployment. Is that true, Steve? Did I say
Yeah,
it
that's
right?
correct. That's correct, Glenn.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, one more, and then we'll close it out here. For those ones we didn't get to, we'll send them on to Glenn and send you an answer. When does the 8 weeks begin? Seems a little vague.
Boy, that is such a great question. The answer is, and again, Steve can correct me if I get it wrong, but once you get approval of your loan, the bank has, I believe, 10 days to get it out the door. They have to respond quickly. They can't sit on the loan. 10 days after that, then you have 10 days to accept it or reject it. If you say nothing, I'm in Brazil, I'm checking out on life, I'm at my psychiatrist's office over all this, overdone, close the file, right? So you got 20 days to start the 8 weeks, because once you get your hot little hands on the money, the clock starts. It doesn't actually matter to them, apparently, at this moment, whether you can pay people, you have people to pay, it's a screwball payroll period, all the things that business owners would think about. Now, remember, this is courtesy of the government, right? So the government has gifted you this money in their minds, and they have no clue how business works, or they wouldn't be politicians, right? They'd be business owners. So it's squirrely, but it starts for sure when you get the money.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. A little bit of a summary. Will my PPP loan be forgiven? We may have generated even more questions than answers potentially today. But that could be a good thing at this point, because part of it, we wanted you to have a sort of a point of a reflection to see where you are and help you to come up with some valid thoughts to ponder and some questions to ask and maybe give you some direction. So again, I want to reiterate what Glenn had said. If you have some further questions, you can always contact your CPA, your financial institution, maybe the SBDC. You can contact Glenn, you can contact us at the chamber, and we'll help you get the answer. But the big thing is maybe think about today's message and come back for part 2 of the series. Part 2 will be next Friday. So that would be the 15th at 10 a.m. And we'll send out, you'll be able to register via the website again, and bring friends. Tell your friends if you got other folks that might be interested in being on this call. We'd be glad to have them. So your homework, of course, is to sit down if you haven't done it already and maybe write down some reasons why you applied for the PPP and the CYA that Mr. Glenn was talking about, and then we'll go from there. So just a couple things about the chamber real quick. We are open for business, of course. The physical offices are closed. If you need to get in touch with us, email is best. We do check our phone. A lot of times Kelly is in the office, but again, just no walk-ins. So, but you can call and we'll get back to you. We do have the new Facebook group. That's the Peters Township Chamber Community Support. You're all welcome to join that. We like to have folks post, whether it's your stuff or fellow businesses, changes or something that's going on with COVID-19. We also have our website and of course our regular Facebook page, etc. So again, I just want to say thanks again to Glenn and to all of you for being on today's webinar. Hopefully we'll see you next Friday at 10 o'clock. So stay well, my friends, and have a great day. Thank you.